I mean, there is no coincidence that we're having a global pandemic, that we are having the worst economic situation we're having, that people are out of work, and then we have this situation around, trying to pull back that skepticism, I mean,
Mm,
so many times this country sort of lets us down as Black people. And, honestly, I'm not a fan of who's in the White House, and that energy is also something that we're sort of navigating, and the hate and the vitriol that he spews doesn't help. So it's complicated, I mean, I have white friends that would die for me, you know what I'm saying? But I also have to acknowledge that some of those friends may have bias too, may have, you look at the woman in Central Park who, like, she didn't
right.
consider herself racist, but, as soon as she needed to, she pulled up that weapon and was able to, use it to her advantage. Political unrest and just around, police brutality, unjust killing of Black people, all that kind of stuff, criminal justice reform. I mean, like, it's not a coincidence
Mm,
that this is happening now. And so we've got people's attention. I said, like, I think, the retaliation against Obama is, I think, what's brought us here, and I believe this country will kind of get it right, just because I do believe in, like, some of the core values, when you think about integrity, when you think about um, a sense of community, coming together. But, it's going to take work. It's going to take work. And I think that's, like, just the first step. When you talk about other things, policy changes, like, how do you make this a more fair and equitable place? You start with things like, how do you make the police experiences for all people to be a lot more, comfortable, free of fear? How do you make getting access to healthcare, that kind of stuff?
yes.
And part of it's like, how do we rethink our entire sort of relation to corporate America? I mean, because this country is not set up to serve people, it's set up to serve corporations. So that's
Mm,
the first thing we have to acknowledge, like, our psychology around money, and just like, you know, we will let people die in order to, like, put money in people's pockets.
yeah, look, I mean, way back when I was studying in London, LSE, my master's degree, right? I was studying
Mm-hmm.
how a country can act as a social safety net for its
Yep.
people, right? And there's
Yep.
lots of good examples out there, obviously, countries that are much smaller than the United States,
Mm-hmm.
but that have a strong welfare state, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
policies that protect everyone, right? And
Mm-hmm.
here it's complicated,
Mm-hmm.
and civil society plays a huge role, but then it's not equitable, right? Across all
Mm-mm.
people, across all
Mm-mm.
regions, across, different sectors of society. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
And there's two things. I mean, healthcare, education. I mean, those are like two fundamental
those are the
things.
basics. I
Those are the
completely agree.
basics. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? And I think if we can kind of start there, and that means we got to, like, freaking regulate the hell out of these corrupt insurance companies. I have my own personal issues with, I mean, just because I've dealt with it,
Yeah.
dealing with some health issues of my own. It's really disgusting. It is how people are treated. Education access. Education was the great equalizer for me. My life and the accomplishments I've had is purely due to access to education.
Hmm.
And that's because I was surrounded by people who valued education. Like I said, my mom, fortunately did, she did get a master's degree, and, people around me, also were very degreed, and, so there was a high value placed on educational achievement. And accordingly, you can kind of use that and ride that to really whatever's possible, whatever you want to make happen, whatever your mind is capable of building. But it's key, and we do not value it in this country at all.
Yeah. So, final question. Given your influences, your mother, who is an activist, your father, who was a quarterback, sports leadership, and who you are, right? Highly educated, highly motivated,
Hmm.
ambitious. There's a lot of pain out there, right now.
Hmm.
Given your resilience and what you described at Harvard and elsewhere, what is your advice for other Black women out there and Black people who are really struggling with what's going on, who are feeling pain?
The first, and listen, I am in that group. I
Yep.
mean, of all the, it's the trauma that drives the accomplishments. To be frank,
Yeah.
um, you know. So my first one is just honestly to take the time out to prioritize your own self care. You know what I mean? And that means, like, don't always have to be the strong one. You don't always have to be the one that has it together. You don't always have to be the one that doesn't cry. Take those moments out to acknowledge how you're feeling. I think as Black women, we tend to want to be the keeper together of everybody and everything, that we don't always do the internal analysis of our own sort of makeup to assess, are we feeding ourselves? So I think that's the big one. The second one I would say is make sure that you have a strong sisterhood community. For me, that has been really helpful across the board. My girls have talked me into jobs, helped me talk myself into jobs, letting people know that I was the SHIT, and even when I didn't even think I was, and folks who've been there when I may have been sick, or when folks who've been there when I was really down because of something else. I mean, my community has really, really kept me, and I don't have siblings. I'm an only child. So that's also probably a big part of why I've relied so much on that. And then the last thing I would say is don't give up. You know what I mean? Like, even when you get tired, rest, but keep going. And when I say that, I mean, like, work for those dreams, strive for those, aspirations, whether they're your own, whether they're for your children. But the one thing that I've always had that I think has helped carry me to all of the heights is this, like, unwavering, unflinching, unmovable belief in my ability to make stuff happen.
That's so beautiful. Gives me the chills.
Yeah. And even if it took a long time, I was like, nope, I can do this. And many of that's because I'm a Christian, so for me, it's all grounded in, like, I'm a child of God. I know what my worth is. I know what I'm capable of. And so that also sort of helps me keep that sense of, like, nope, I know this is possible. So let me figure it out. And I think that's why I've been so successful, because somebody will tell me no, and I'm like, oh, okay, that means I need to come to you tomorrow, or a different way, or move around you. Like, there's like, no does not mean anything to me.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And as Black women, we have to know that, because we are told all the time that we're not good enough, that we're not capable enough, especially by, mainstream white America. And that's just not true.